Today we're going to talk about, do we actually know what's real? And the question is that a relevant question for today? So if you have some comments and you hear this, you can type that into Facebook Live. I see people are jumping on right now. So the question that we're trying to answer is, do we know what's real? I mean, that's a relevant question no matter what the situation is, but I think it's a way more relevant question right now, at least how we do so, right? So I'm going to give you a little bit background why I believe that is a relevant question always, right? So I live at least in the United States, and I was grow up in the Netherlands, and those are, at least we consider them as democratic countries, right? And in democratic countries, we have freedom of choice, and that's in our constitution. And I'm not going to do any political discussion whether it's really a democratic country or not, but there's a democratic principle in there that is really ancient, right? I mean, that comes way beyond. I mean, the Greek did awesome things around that, thinking about the democratic way of thinking and a democratic way of living. But if you study that, you will see that kind of thinking has been around for quite a long time. So that means freedom of choice. And what has freedom to joy of choice now to do with what when we talk about reality? So in reality, is a lot of people just want to make us convinced what the facts are and what not the facts are. So what is black and what is white. Black shirt, white shirt, right? So all these kind of things are facts. We call it often in the scientific world, right? We That's what we do. We try to find and collect data, and then if we have enough data, we do some experiments, and then we can prove something or disapprove something, right? It's a very, you know, simplistic way of a scientific model. And that's how we try to find out what is real, right? But as you have known over time, that in there was a time that everyone believed that the Earth was flat, and actually there still are some people who believe that the Earth is flat, and that's okay too, right? But for those people, there was not a belief; there was a fact, and it was therefore their reality. And in their reality, you could fall off the earth, if you would go far enough, right? So people actually believe that. And some people believe that you would then fall into maybe something else, Hades or something, right? So that was the reality of that time. And there were already, people who kind of did some research and stuff like that and actually proved that the earth was flat, and therefore it was commonly accepted that that was the reality of that time, right? So, and you would say, yeah, that's ridiculous, Sean. We all know that it is not true anymore. But there are many things that we actually still don't know scientifically whether that's true or not. Most of the things actually we do not know, and every scientist would testify to that. By the way, if we at least come together on one point, in theorists and scientific people, then and scientists, then that is that there's more that we don't know than that we know, right? So if that by itself is really true already, then how do we know then what's real? You look at me now either through Zoom, and or you look at me through Facebook Live, and if I would do something like this, something magically would happen. I suddenly wrote on your screen. And last week I did this already, right? Wrote a nice, I draw a nice little sun on your screen. It's not sunny outside in Dallas, by the way. So, but it's not real, and I know some people actually, you can't see that on Facebook Live, right? But if you would log into Zoom, then you can actually see that I draw something, and it looks really like I do the same thing is on writing on your screen. And is that real? And I've noticed that some people actually were trying when I did that, or when my screen that I write on was not that clean, that they were trying to clean their screen. So, and then they found out, oh, it's not real. Well, it's real on my side. It's not just real on your side, right? No. I try to not constantly talk about what's going on in the world, COVID-19, coronavirus, but it's hard to not do. And plus, what the place is always about is always talking about real things. And this is a real thing that goes on in our life. How we react to it, by the way, could be completely and entirely different, right? So I see people reacting like still in denial, saying, "Ah, man, that's just all pass, right? Or it's not me; it won't affect me." I saw another news today about the reality of COVID-19, and we talk about social distance. It's a new word, probably popular word or term that we see, but that social distance is actually a behavior that can only exist if you have money enough. Think about a refugee camp. Do you think they have social different distance? They don't have social distance at all. They can't even wash their hands. Can you imagine that? Is there anyone who actually think about these things? And that's their reality. That's their reality. They think, okay, great. I mean, maybe they don't even know in the refugee camp that we are so concerned about social distance. And that doesn't mean that we don't have to do it, right? I still think that we need to do that, right? But I just want you to think about that a lot of these things that are true and not true are mostly playing in our head. And that links it back to our democratic principle. And that's all right? That's the freedom that we have. At least there's one place in our life where we have some freedom. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who want to say, and they are democratic leaders, but they don't want to, they don't allow us the democratic freedom that we have in our mind. And it sounds like a very deep topic today. And it is, because the only thing that I can stimulate you is to think about these things a little bit longer and define what is your reality of today. I had talked with many people in this last past days, and some people were incredibly motivated on target, just like 9, 10 days ago. There was not an issue with them motivating them to do more in life, to expect more in life, and that they will do extremely well. And just the fact that they have been isolated now for 2 weeks changed their perspective on life. They said, maybe I should stop with all doing all these things. What's worth it? The world is going to pieces anyhow already. So their world, their reality has changed for them so much that they actually start to think differently. Now, of course, they have the freedom to do that. I'm not denying the freedom of doing that, but it's a pity. Can I, as a motivational speaker, can I motivate people to do even more in time like this, right? And I do see that there are people who are even doing more in a time where people actually doing less. So they look at reality completely different. How is that possible, right? So think about that for just a second. And I see there are actually quite a lot of people online on Facebook Live. And so if you just drop some messages in there, why do you think that some people just take it, as I'm going to pause, I'm going to reset everything, I'm not going to do anything. Some people actually get quite depressed. Other people get more motivated to do things, although their world is really small, like mine now, right? I'm sitting in this corner here that's called my office, and I'm sitting here for like 12, 13 hours a day trying to work and create something different. That's my reality at the moment. It's not a better reality than yours, or yours is better than mine. It's just a reality how I deal with it. So what is it? What is it that causes people to react different to different situations? And how is that so much different today than in any other day? Right? So if you want to say something about that, that will be really good. In the meantime, I'm just going to go on a little bit, right? And hopefully tell you something about that reality is maybe not so easy to answer as what you think it is. The fact that we think we know what's real is only to help us to stay sane. Does that make sense? So here are some realities that is really true. We all going to die one day. It is pretty clear that the earth at some point in time will cease to exist. That's a reality. I mean, very, if if the world is not gloomy enough today, I will add something to it. Is that okay? Right? So that's a reality, but we don't want to hear that, right? We don't want to hear that. There are things that we call that selective perception that we don't want to hear. If you grew up in a culture like mine, it doesn't really matter what culture that is, but I grew up in a very Dutch, Indo-Dutch culture. If you don't know what that means, right? I know there are some people online, by the way, who very much know what an Indo-Dutch culture is. Our reality is completely different than when you grew up Dutch, and that's only in a small country of 16 million people. And trust me, there are a lot of things. We made a little joke about it, right? And can I make a little Indo joke here, guys? So if you laugh about it, then you understand it, then I think I have to do that. I have to make in the coming weeks a toilet paper joke every time that I do this. Is that okay? Right? Okay. So there is a shortage of toilet paper, but in the world, it doesn't really matter so much. So our reality is a little bit less affected. And the only word that I will use is jabok, and you can Google what that means. And that's why our world of the shortage of toilet paper is hardly touched by. So I hope that gave you some giggles about the reality of life. But there is way more reality than than uh, than than other things, right? I see some people send me some laughs about that. I think that's quite cool. So what else can we just let me just go a little bit out of what's going on today. And normally, if I would do a talk like this, I would talk about, hey, can we answer where we're coming from? No, we can't, right? Okay, there are people who believe that. I'm a believer in God, so I think I have the answer, but can I prove it? Not at all, right? So, but it's just my reality, right? But I'm not here in this world to convince everyone for my reality. So does that make sense? So it's immediately a hard topic. Don't immediately hang up. Don't send me hate mails, because this is what I believe. And what I believe is my reality in my head. And since I believe in a free choice, it's my democratic choice in my mind to believe that. And a lot of people, yes, also the people who believe, or politicians, or scientists, or whatever you have, they try to convince you differently. And what they basically do is they try to deny your democratic um, democratic mind. And your democratic mind can make up whatever they want to make up, right? And I say, as long as you do it in respect of other people, respect other people, keep them safe and so on, it should be really fine. And that quality, guys, is even more important today than it ever was, because our world is changing so fast from day to day. So you have to make it for yourself what reality is. You have to make choices to move forward. You can, stop the world and say, in April, or in some states, actually, Virginia State already announced that they will have the shelter in, or shelter in place. That's what it's called. Like, we don't call it a lockdown here. A lockdown would be even more strict than the shelter in place. But the shelter in place will at least stay until June the 1st. At least that was announced yesterday. I'm not even sure if that's true. I'm not even sure if that's reality. So that brings us to the next point. There's a lot of fake news out there. And did you know, for instance, that fake news is a term? Do you think how old that term is? Can anyone tell me how old that term fake news is? Okay, so I'm just waiting, right? Pretending that everyone is typing now to me. I say, yeah, I know how old it is. It's 2017. It was chosen as the word of the best word for 2017. That's only 3 years ago. Fake news. We don't even know what it is. So that's kind of scary that nowadays we know, we have accepted that as a new reality, that there is a lot of fake news out there. In the beginning, it just started as like a little spoof, a little funny things that we sent out there, and people made some fake logo of a fake broadcasting company or a fake news channel, and then did some fake news, right? And it was kind of fun, but nowadays it's very hard to find out what is what is real and what's not real. And when the coronavirus started a few months ago, for a lot of people, that was kind of, I mean, maybe it's real, but it doesn't affect us. And now you see people completely on the flip side, and maybe almost believe that we soon will be in the scenario of the Walking Dead or something, drastically like that. So learning how to cope with the reality of the day, whatever that reality is, becomes a skill that is incredibly important to help you through this thing. And yesterday I was talking to a coaching client of mine, and we used the word new. That's the new normal. So what is the new normal for you? Think about it for a moment, right? Because what's normal is the reality for you. And for a lot of people, that was, you go to work, and let me do that a little bit in a boring way. You go to work 9 till 5, and that was your reality every day. Your reality every day was that you had to deal with maybe some rush hour. So a lot of traffic in the morning, a lot of traffic when you come back. Maybe your reality was that you in the evening would go to the gym and stuff like that. Their reality is still there. You cannot exercise that reality anymore. If I go to my gym, it's like 5 minutes here. If I go, it's still there. It's just useless at the moment, but it's still there. And who knows, if we stay in this long enough, it might not be there in a few months, because people can't survive this. And so we have to define for ourselves what is the new normal. And there are a couple of things that we know we need to do to stay sane. And to understand what for you reality is has all to do with sanity, right? If you lose all sense of reality, so you don't know anymore what reality is, I'm not going into the psychological effects of that, but in layman terms, you will get a little bit crazy. There's no way you can cope with the world anymore if you don't know anymore what real is. So that's what people quickly have done in the past couple of days, is just put things in their mind to believe what that's real. So for some people, if that means, we cannot leave the house, we cannot do any grocery, we just eat what's in the house for as long as it takes, period. That's their reality. And I'm not saying they're wrong. Other people say, I'm not affected by it. I am a believer of God, and God will protect me. And so I can go wherever I want. That's their reality. I unfortunately think they are wrong, because that's my reality. But in their reality, they are completely right. Does that make sense? Right? So, but the thing that I'm saying here, we're not need to talk about who's right and wrong. We help people educate what's maybe a better choice and maybe recreate their reality. That's maybe a good thing to do. But we cannot talk about who's right and wrong. People need to understand what their reality is to simply survive this time. It sounds like a hard topic today, but it's necessary. So take some time in that. What is your new reality? For me, it is working from home. I'm a dance teacher, so I move the whole day. It's a hard adjustment in some way, right? Normally, I stand with my students on the floor, and we have a lot of fun, a lot of energy, a lot of good learning, and a lot of good teaching and what have you not. And that has gone, and I could become completely depressed over it. Other people immediately jump online and start to teach online and create that as their new reality, right? Some jobs cannot be done at all anymore, right? And they need to be super creative to do that. For other people, they take it, say, hey, May, I have a little sabbatical right now. And maybe there are things that I wanted to do for a long time, and now I have the time to do them. So let's do that. And they get a smile on their face and start doing that. And there are massive amounts of people, trust me, massive amount of people that it hardly made any difference. They were already working from home, right? So that's that. But there are a couple of things that we need to keep in our life, in our reality, to survive what we're doing right now. One of the things is, and I talked about it last week, right? Think about what you normally do and what you should do right now. And I say, try not to make too many changes. Maybe there's a different form. So if you want to know that, go back to the video that we have. But a couple of things that I want to add today. You need to make sure that you maintain some sort of social life. Isolation, even if you're an introvert or whatever, is definitely killing over time. You make up a lot of things in your mind that are just not helping you. So maintain a certain social life. So there's a bad thing about social media. We talked just a minute ago about fake news. We don't even know anymore what's real news and what fake news is. But there's a really good thing about social media. You still can connect. Don't forget, you can just pick up the phone, right? What I do with my family, I just turn on Skype or Zoom or what have you not, right? I just let it run. You don't have to just make a call. That's what we did maybe in the past. We just had a conference call or whatever. And now I just put it on and leave it on for a few hours. And I do go my way. And in the meantime, my kids, they are in the Netherlands. If you have followed me, you know that there's a long distance between me and my kids. But I can just, while they are doing their thing and I'm doing my thing, and it feels like we're in the same place. Does that make sense? So I maintain that social contact. That's incredibly important to do that. Health, to maintain your health, it's maybe a little bit more challenging now that you have to stay a little bit more home. But think about it: if you don't stay healthy, how long do you think you can survive that? So it's a little bit more challenge to eat more healthy, do your exercise, but make that a new reality, right? Maybe even pick up a new habit, do exercises at home if you want to. Sleep. I've heard many people who go to bed much later now and they watch way more television. I can tell you sleep deprivation is, when you have a lack of sleep over time, that is one of the things that, bring down your energy so fast that you have no idea with it. So you could, in this short new norm or normal, right, you could do something really good for you and you can do something really bad for you. And we're all trying to cope with it, but I would definitely go back to your basic principles, your personal basic principles in life, your own values and norms. Revisit them and just only think about, can I do the same things in a different form, right? That's one thing. um, so if you go back to that point, I see another couple of people coming online, which is great, by the way. Thank you for being here. Is, can you still mean something for someone else? Can you still put your life in service of someone else when you are not in contact with them? I think you can. Again, social media is a great thing. I see people sending out encouraging things, or they just include them in what they do. So you do a little bit of inclusion and still do that. So yes, your form of life is changing of the situation we're in, but your output of life can still be quite the same. And this is what at the time I was a big fan of Mr. Eckhart Tolle. You all have read it probably, The Power of Now, and what was the other book that he wrote? But anyhow, The Power of Now was, I think, his most famous one. But one thing he said recently was really nice, right? So pretend yourself as being a big lake, right? A big lake, and when there's a storm, even on a lake, the surface is going to be disturbed tremendously. But if you go deep in that lake, you're in the inside of that lake. That takes a long time before that changes because of the storm at the surface, right? So if there is a lake, yeah, let me use this a little bit. Yeah, and the lake gets a little bit storms, these are crazy waves, then it's very deep, right? The lake stays very calm, right? It might be, this is a weird drawing, so I don't even know if I'm a good drawer or not. Probably not. You guys, you can't see it, but wait, what? I turn it around for a moment. So this is what I draw, right? Okay, that's my lake. Have a good laugh at that. So your lake is actually staying quite calm inside. The majority of the lake, if you would measure that in gallons of water, then you would say that at the most, maybe 1% of the lake got disturbed, but it is the outside. And therefore, we feel that our whole world is shaken up, but it is not. The biggest part of your life and the biggest part about you is still the same. I talked about it. Your norms and values, that was your reality that you live by anyhow, are still the same. They are still there. right? The goals that you had in life, they are still there. The form you can put it in with, for some people, have to change a little bit more drastic than in other cases. Like me, I'm a dance coach and a dancer, so a couple of these things had to change dramatically. I had to think about it. I can call friends how they do it, stuff like that, create a new reality. Maybe for a moment I put that on a pause button and see if I find maybe later on some things in there. But there are many things that I could do differently. For instance, I like to teach things, and I went just teaching online. I did that already, and I just do it in a different form, right? So that's one thing. So, and maybe you came up with way more interesting ways than I'm talking about right now, but that's reality, right? Reality did not change so much. We just found a new normal, right? And a new one. What is your new normal? So write about that if you want to. Let me see how we are on time. Pretty cool, I would say. Pretty cool. Sorry, guys, for Facebook Live. Normally, I log in Facebook right into Zoom, and you can exactly see what we do here. I had a hard time to find a topic that was not related to to the current situation. I actually came also to the conclusion that would be actually completely silly for me as a coach to not address the topics that I normally address, but just with the context of what's going on today, right? So I want to wish you all good, safe, and health, of course, in this time. I know more and more people are actually directly affected by what's going on. So don't think that I think light about these things. Um, I start to literally hear names, and now they're already friends of or family of who are directly, impacted by those lives. I wish all those families a great strength and courage to go through these times, right? And all the other people, think about one thing at least, right? Your reality is that you can still mean something for all the other people. I know as people we are not so connected anymore as we were in the past, where we could literally meet someone like your colleagues at work, or maybe my students in the dance studio, but we can still connect with them and mean something for them. And that's a good reality to have. If you choose to do another reality for yourself, that's not wrong, right? Remember what we started to talk about today, and that is we live in a democratic world. Some people want to deny, your freedom in your mind. Don't let them ever take that away, whether it's a coronavirus or not. Just do it in respect of other people, and if you can, in service of other people, that's always a really, really good thing to do, right? So that is my reality. You don't have to take that over. You don't have to copy it, but I would love to hear what you think your reality is right now. For anyone who needs a little bit more encouragement, we are still there at the place. Send me a personal message if you need to, because I know a lot of people do nowadays, and my reality is that I have the calling to hopefully give that to some people, if only to have a listening ear in these times. Okay.